The following video is created for educational and awareness purposes only. Our goal is to revisit unsolved criminal cases and keep their stories alive, in hopes that renewed attention may one day help bring answers, or even justice. We do not intend to accuse, defame, or spread misinformation about anyone involved. All information is based on publicly available sources and media reports.
It's a cold May morning in 1990. The forest around Lac du Flambeau, Wisconsin is silent, except for the soft rustle of leaves and the echo of water moving somewhere nearby. A car's engine fades into the distance, headlights disappear, and under the cover of darkness, a young Native American woman, 29-year-old Suzy Poupart, is taken from a party, never to be seen alive again.
6 months later, hunters stumble upon something horrifying in the woods: a purse, a jacket, and then a human jawbone. This is the haunting and unresolved case of Suzy Poupart, a mother of two, whose murder has remained unsolved for over 3 decades, buried under silence, fear, and secrets that still grip the community today.
Welcome to Haunting Justice, where every mystery whispers from the past. We dig into real unsolved crimes, forgotten victims, and the truth that still haunts the dark. Subscribe now and help us keep their stories alive.
Lac du Flambeau, a quiet Native American reservation nestled deep in the forests of northern Wisconsin. It's the kind of place where people know each other's names, where families are connected by generations of history and tradition. But beneath that peaceful surface lies a painful truth, the reality faced by many indigenous communities across America: the epidemic of missing and murdered indigenous women, or MMIW. Suzy Poupart became one of those names.
Born on November 12, 1960, Suzy was known for her beauty, strength, and strong will. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind or to live her life freely. Friends described her as vibrant, funny, and fiercely protective of her family. She was a mother of 2, Alexandria and Jared, and at 29 she was still figuring out her path forward. She worked, she partied occasionally, and she cared deeply for her kids. But on one night, May 20th, 1990, everything changed.
It was a Saturday night on Makwa Trail in Lac du Flambeau. The house party was in full swing, people drinking, talking, the usual weekend chaos in a small town. Suzy decided to go out that night, though her mother begged her not to. She told her daughter she had a bad feeling, a mother's intuition that something wasn't right. But Suzy brushed it off. She said she'd be fine. She'd be home later. Witnesses say Suzy arrived at the party sometime before midnight. She was seen talking, laughing, just being herself. But as the night wore on, things took a darker turn. At around 4 a.m., Suzy was seen leaving the party. Not alone, but with 2 men. Multiple witnesses reported seeing her being forced into a car. That was the last time anyone saw Suzy alive.
When Suzy didn't come home, her mother and sister immediately grew worried. They reported her missing. But in 1990, especially in small rural areas, missing persons reports, particularly involving Native women, were rarely treated with urgency. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The local authorities questioned the 2 men last seen with her, Joe Cobb and Robert Elm. Both denied any wrongdoing. They claimed they had offered Suzy a ride home, but after an argument, they said they dropped her off near the Lac du Flambeau Elementary School, which, ironically, today stands where the local casino is.
Their story didn't quite add up. There were witnesses who said she was forced into the car, not walking freely. But without physical evidence or immediate leads, the case went cold fast. 6 long months passed with no answers, only whispers and rumors.
It's November 22, 1990, the start of hunting season. 2 hunters are deep in the Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest, about 6 miles from Lac du Flambeau. As they move through the woods, something catches their eye – a purse. Then, a tribal ID card – a jacket. When they lift the jacket, a human jawbone falls from beneath it. The remains are later confirmed to belong to Suzy Poupart. Her body had been left under a log, duct tape and plastic nearby. She was naked. The forensic evidence revealed that she had been sexually assaulted, and the circumstances strongly suggested homicide. But because her remains were partial, the medical examiner couldn't determine an exact cause of death. To investigators, though, the scene told its own story, one of violence, control, and a desperate attempt to hide a body.
For her family, the discovery brought only pain, not closure. They finally knew where she was, but not what had happened or who had done it. The discovery reignited the investigation, but it didn't take long for frustration to return. Authorities again focused on the same 2 men, Joe Cobb and Robert Elm, and eventually a third man's name entered the mix, Francis Fritz Schumann. Schumann's name came up repeatedly in interviews. Locals whispered that he knew more than he was saying, maybe much more. Years later, in 2007, a John Doe hearing was held, essentially a legal procedure where the court tries to determine whether enough evidence exists to bring charges. But the case fell apart.
Witnesses didn't show up. Some refused to testify. Others changed their stories. The charges were dropped. Prosecutors said they simply didn't have enough to move forward. District Attorney Al Moustakis still tried to question the 3 main suspects. Their reactions were telling. Francis Fritz Schumann invoked his Fifth Amendment right, refusing to answer questions that might incriminate him. When asked if he'd confessed to another inmate about taking Suzy to the woods or if he'd returned to the party covered in blood, he stayed silent. Robert Elm refused to testify without a lawyer. Joe Cobb didn't even show up. For years, police kept revisiting the same leads, the same names, but every time the trail ended the same way – silence.
In 2014, hope returned in the form of technology. Authorities decided to re-examine the old evidence using modern DNA testing, technology far more advanced than anything available in 1990. Samples were sent to labs. Detectives waited, but when results came back, nothing. No new matches, no new leads. Even after all the advances in forensics, the forest had kept its secrets. Still, law enforcement refused to give up. A billboard went up along Highway 47 showing Suzy's face and the words, "Who killed Suzy Poupart?" Sheriff Joe Faith hoped it would bring new information.
Some tips came in, nothing conclusive, but it reminded everyone that Suzy's story wasn't forgotten. Sheriff Faith later said, "I believe this case will be solved when someone decides to come forward with what they know, firsthand."
But that's easier said than done. Investigators have long believed that people in Lac du Flambeau know what happened to Suzy, but they're afraid to talk. Her cousin, Bill, said it bluntly, "I know who did it." He explained that people stay silent because they fear retaliation. He said if you say anything about anything, they're going to affect you. They'll take away your job, your house, your kids, or your health. It's a chilling statement, and it raises a question. Who could have that much power in a small town. Commentators have speculated that Suzy's killers, or those protecting them, might hold influence within the community, perhaps positions of authority, perhaps connections that make them untouchable.
The silence has lasted more than 30 years. And it's that silence, not just the crime, that has haunted her family ever since.
Over time, two main theories have emerged about what happened to Suzy that night. Theory 1. She was abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered by the men she left the party with, most likely Joe Cobb and Robert Elm. Witnesses saw her being forced into the car. Their story about dropping her off near the school never matched what others saw. The area where her remains were found was remote, somewhere she couldn't have reached on her own. The duct tape, the plastic, the attempt to hide her body all pointed toward a planned disposal. But without physical proof tying them to the scene, charges never stuck.
Theory 2. A larger group was involved, possibly including Francis Fritz Schumann and others. Rumors suggest Suzy resisted an attempted sexual assault and was beaten severely. One version of the story claims she was killed with the pump handle of a tire jack. Her body was then hidden in the woods to conceal the crime. These details remain unconfirmed, but they align with whispers that have echoed in the community for decades. Whispers that everyone knows, but no one dares to speak aloud.
For Suzy's children, Alexandria and Jared, the years since have been filled with questions and silence. Jared, the younger of the two, has spent years trying to piece together what really happened to his mother. He's spoken with people in town, listened to the stories, and connected the fragments of truth that others are too afraid to share publicly. His conclusion, drawn from what he's heard, is horrifying: that his mother was beaten, sexually assaulted, and murdered, and that several people in their small community know exactly who did it.
Imagine growing up like that, hearing your mother's name whispered in fear, knowing her killers may still walk free around you. For Suzy's family, justice isn't just about punishment, it's about peace, finally being able to bury their grief with the truth.
Suzy's story has become more than just one woman's tragedy. It's part of a national crisis. Native American women are statistically 2.5 times more likely to experience sexual assault than women of any other ethnicity in the U.S., and cases involving indigenous victims often face delayed investigations, missing records, or outright negligence. Suzy's murder, like so many others, is both a local heartbreak and a symbol of systemic failure, a failure to protect, to believe, and to act. Over 30 years later, Suzy's case remains open. Her file still sits on a detective's desk. The billboard still stands, faded but defiant. And her children are still waiting for someone, anyone, to finally break the silence.
It's easy to think time heals everything. But for the family of Suzy Poupart, time has only deepened the wound. She was a daughter, a mother, a sister, a friend. Her life was stolen and her story for too long ignored. But her memory lives on, not just in the family who still loves her, but in every person who refuses to forget her name.
If you know something about what happened to Suzy, if you've heard the whispers or seen the fear, remember this: silence protects the guilty, not the innocent. Someone out there knows the truth, and it's time that truth comes to light.
If you found this story important, if you believe voices like Suzy's deserve to be heard, please subscribe to our channel and help us continue bringing light to unsolved cases like this. And if you want to dive deeper into the full story, watch our extended breakdown on the Suzy Poupart case, where we uncover every lead, every rumor, and every new clue investigators are still chasing today. Because behind every unsolved case, there's a family still waiting for answers.